had that dream again. My small business needs to hire, but I don't use LinkedIn, and I hire an energy vampire. But also, they're a literal vampire. And suddenly, my team is spending all their time sharpening wooden stakes and buying bulk silver and rehearsing ancient chants, and then I wake up.
Don't let hiring nightmares ruin your dreams. LinkedIn Jobs' new AI assistant takes insights from over 1 billion professionals to create a short list of the best fits for you. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/quality. Start hiring today with LinkedIn.
The Subaru Share the Love event is on from November 20th to January 2nd. During this event, Subaru donates to charities like Meals on Wheels, and so far has supported the delivery of nearly 5 million meals to our aging neighbors. When you purchase or lease a new vehicle during the 2025 Subaru Share the Love event, Subaru and its retailers will make a minimum $300 donation to charity. Visit Subaru.com/share to learn more.
As we look back on the conversations that matter most in 2025, this episode stands out for how clearly it challenges the way coaches think about the modern passing game. This Coaching Coordinator Network Best of 2025 re-air comes from the Passing Lab and features a wide-ranging, honest discussion on quick game, hybrid answers, motion, spacing, and what it actually takes to teach quarterbacks in today's defensive landscape. Rather than chasing trends, this conversation focuses on structure, problem solving, and giving players real answers on Friday night and Saturday afternoon. The episode is presented by Modern Football Technology and their quarterback evaluation platform. If you're serious about developing quarterbacks, teaching decision-making, and evaluating performance beyond surface stats, Modern Football gives you the tools to do it with clarity and consistency. You can learn more and explore the platform at modernfootball.com. The link to it is in the show notes. This episode is also paired with the Passing Lab Companion, an AI learning tool built entirely from our Passing Lab conversations over the last 3 years. It's designed to help coaches revisit ideas from the episode, apply them to their own system, and think through structure, spacing, and quarterback development in a practical way. Whether you're building a passing game, rethinking how you teach it, or just trying to create more clarity for your quarterback, this conversation with Caleb Corrill, hosted by Josh Herring, is worth revisiting. Let's get into this Best of 2025 episode of The Passing Lab. The Passing Lab is brought to you by our partner, Modern Football Technology, and their quarterback development platform, the same tool trusted by NFL coaches like Rob Everett of the Miami Dolphins, former UFL, XFL offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach A.J. Smith, and creator of the R4 system, Dub Maddox. It's helping coaches make smarter decisions and build better quarterbacks rep by rep. If you're still choosing your quarterback based on gut feeling or raw stats, it's time to evolve. Modern Football Technology's quarterback development platform gives coaches real-time data from every rep, tracking timing, accuracy, and decision-making, and tying it all back to specific concepts and situations in your play data. It doesn't show you who performed, it shows you why, where they're improving, and what to coach next. That's why coaches like Rob Everett, A.J. Smith, and Dub Maddox are using it to develop their quarterbacks with clarity and confidence. Modern Football Technology. Clarity for coaches, confidence for quarterbacks. Learn more at modernfootball.com.
I do think hybridizing the quick game is the answer, but as much as traditional 95 white cross was built off that premise, you still don't see it much. I mean, the NFL, I really caught on to it last year. I'd never really seen the two-man stick without the vertical component on that side with what I would deem white cross. It's not traditional white cross, but they're effectively hitting those areas.
Well, we're back for season 3 of the Passing Lab. This is one of my favorite series that we've done on Coaching Coordinator, always filled with some great information and takeaways, things that you need to pull out a notebook and write these down. And we have a great one starting off here with a repeat performer. I think our first repeat performer on the Passing Lab, Caleb Corrill. So Josh, tell us a little bit about Caleb. He definitely has some updates to his resume and what we're going to be hearing about today.
Yeah, Caleb is no stranger to the coach and coordinator podcast family. He's got his own. He is the offense coordinator and quarterback coach at Georgetown College. And it's just, at any level, I talk to all kinds of guys. He's one of my favorite guys to talk to. We have kind of a off-season powwow every year, and so we decided to have a special episode and have him ask me some questions, me ask him some questions, and just kind of give people a window into some of our ball talks, I guess.
Yeah, definitely an exciting one here, so let's get into it. Coach Herring's conversation with Caleb Corrill.
All right, it's time for another episode of the Passing Lab, and this one is a very special episode. We don't often have special episodes, I guess. This will be a little bit different what people are used to. So I've got a guest today. I'm super excited about it. He doesn't really need an introduction. He's got his own podcast in the coach and coordinator family and is just becoming a really well-known offensive mind throughout just football in the U.S. But I've got Caleb Corrill with me, the OC and quarterback coach at Georgetown College. And Caleb, we've known each other a while now. We like to talk ball. What we thought we'd do today that I think is different is we're going to kind of you have two show hosts. We're just going to kind of go back and forth and kind of talk to each other, kind of state of the passing game kind of thing. Where are we at in America passing game wise? Where are we going? What are we seeing? And hopefully I think people will get a lot out of it. So pretty cool episode. Glad you could take the time. I know the life of a college coach never ends. Super busy. So I'm glad you could be on.
Yeah, man, I'm super excited. And obviously, I always like to look at these, you and I would do this if it wasn't recorded. So I think it'll be interesting just to be able to pick each other's brains on air and kind of see what each of us are seeing and what are some of the things that we're really believing in and find some ways that maybe help some coaches out there that are on their drive taking a listen to what we got to say.
Yeah, it's going to be good. What I want to jump in on, you and I have discussed this a little bit. I've discussed this with several different coaches. I think it's been like a hot Twitter and X topic a little bit, but what has happened to quick game is something that people are asking. And there's everything from it doesn't matter to this is a big deal and it's something that needs to change to not only does it not matter, it actually still exists. We just run RPOs. We're good. We don't need quick game. So you're hearing a lot of some disagreement about this, and maybe some of it is semantics, like a lot of the things we get into and debate about online. But what do you think? Like, has quick game been reduced overall in college and pro and even high school ball? Does it need to come back? Like, let's start with your thoughts and we'll kind of roll from there.
It's interesting because I think both of us, we've kind of hit a couple different job spots within the last calendar year. And I think obviously you're well versed and well researched in the topic. But I think what's helped me is it got outside of a bubble that I was in and got to see other people operate. And I thought maybe I was going crazy of watching other offenses. And I always try to put the caveat, like, it doesn't mean an offense is bad, right, if they don't run quick game. But with how close it is to my heart and honestly, how much it's helped the operations that we've been a part of, watching these different levels and then starting to do some research, I don't see it in a manner that is got any type of evolution to it, but let alone is even present. I don't watch everything, but I try to sprinkle from the NFL level down to the levels that I coach at, and even looking at quarterbacks all day long and recruiting. And there's obviously people out there that we'll kind of talk about that do it, but I really, truly am not seeing it. And being in 2 new leagues in the last calendar year, one of the first things I do beyond even studying the defense is what are the other offenses doing, just because I want to know the trends and how teams are defending them. And even seeing that, there's good offense that's being operated. But if a team does carry quick game, it's very minute. It seems what I would call rigid or boxy in the sense that it solves very direct issues that may be presented. But it doesn't seem like it's as built out as the play action game right now, or I think RPOs have done a good job of coming along. But even that, I mean, the defense that we go against every day, they're going to disallow RPOs. And so watching teams, really, what I've noticed is it's first level screen game and it's very vertical play action game. And that seems to be, and there's some good stuff in that, obviously that you could watch enough of that, there's some good boot game, but really that true quick game, I mean, I'm having a hard time finding it when I'm researching. And I'm assuming in some degree with what you're looking at is the same deal. But that's what I've noticed. And you've got a new job as well. And obviously you're in the same state, but are you seeing that same trend? Like, has this happened before in your coaching career? That's kind of what I'm interested in, because that's what I'm trying to wrap my brain around is, have we seen this disappear and then come back, or is this a new thing?
I don't think it's happened before. I mean, I think you've got several different things going on. I think one, it made it easy with RPOs. Like at the end of the day, a lot of high school coaches and definitely college coaches as well, I mean, they want to run the football, right? And so it's this sort of blanket, this comfort thing that you have of, okay, I can run the football, but if the things that are harming me in the run game, now I can be able to throw this thing and it solves it or whatever. Well, defenses evolve. And now you have defenses that are just like in the old option days where they're trying to say, okay, we want the quarterback to keep it, or we want this to be handed off because the quarterback is the elite athlete. Well, they're starting to figure out, what is it? Do these teams want to throw RPOs? Okay, well, we're not going to let them do that. I think that's kind of the defensive answer. Now, the semantic part of it, I've heard guys argue that what do we mean by quick game? Because traditional, you have hitches, you have 3-step slants, you have 5-yard quick outs, the stuff that people maybe thought in the original, if you went to a playbook and it's day one and it's your base quick game stuff, you definitely aren't seeing a lot of that outside of RPOs. And there can be an argument that guys can make that there's nothing wrong with that, because with the different coverages that people are seeing, you have everything from press corners to you have different split field coverages, palms and things that can bait you into throwing this quick game, hit a guy, pick it off. So I think one of the things answer-wise that I'm seeing at the NFL level, maybe way more than the college level or high school level, is what I call hybrid quick game. For me, to be hybrid, you're either talking about you've got a quick game concept and then something with drop back timing on the backside, or it's a non-traditional quick game timing. Like it's a tweener timing for the quarterbacks. Like I'm seeing colleges now, they're running a glance and a flat instead of a slant flat. Like, for example, and it's not perfect. Or if you're using, your perfect timing that you got, I like all the stuff. Like we never have a passing lab episode that we don't mention Doug Maddox or Dan Gonzalez. You're going to have drops that are going to be alternative drops from what a lot of guys taught when they were under center, obviously. But even in gun, you don't have a 1-step or a punch 1-step. Now you've got different slide step drops that people are working. So those alternatives to me are an answer to some of the things defenses are doing where you get the best of both worlds. And that took forever to answer your question. But the question is, no, I haven't seen that before. And you do not see. We're in the middle of summer, obviously, and we've started 7-on-7 season. And like in 7-on-7, if it's 2008, you're going to see half the passes that get thrown are quick game passes. And you're going to try, you're working your 15 yards to get a first down. But it's quick game, first down. We'll go to a 7-on-7 passing league tournament and no one throws quick game. They don't throw it at all. So that definitely is, you're not just making that up. It's something I think that is just a trend in the game.
Yeah, and I think I've seen the same things. Obviously, you and I are going to always check out the Rams and the hybridization of really the 2-man stick. And I know you mentioned dagger off air or their double ends that kind of, to me, simulates by cross. I think it's something that you and I and others have done with the quick game. And I like the term hybrid because I do believe that the answers to quick game are different now, and they need to be different because of split field coverages. I think if you're going to run what I would deem as half field concepts, I tend to steer away from mirrored unless it's something that I believe solves the base 1 high, 2 high answers on both sides. But you got to decode, as Dub saw his tweet, you got to have some answers before, because what I've noticed is even within the last 3 years is when you split the field and have, your 2 basic quick game concepts, defenses are disguising really well. And what I found was, I tend to stay away from it, is if the quarterback guesses the side wrong, it is a concept that really doesn't have an out. We are unable to progress. So in the hybrid game, what I've tried to do is pair the quicks with the intermediates. And that's kind of what we call it, as an intermediate pass game, where there is a quick game that we are actually trying to throw. I know we've talked about that before, where it's not just bait. We want to throw it. But the other thing, and we've talked about it, is I think within the traditional quick game, you can create progressive answers. And so you think of a 2-man stick with a spacing concept. I mean, that's still a book read. You're sweeping across the deal. And I think I have seen a decent amount of spacing, especially with all the cover 3 that's coming around. But to me, that's the crux of it, is it's still, like you said, possession football. And what scares me to death is I want to throw the football in the middle of the defense at 15 to 17 yards every single play. But with the Tampa 2 and really deep hook droppers, that's hard. And it scares me to death to think that our pass game is going to be solely reliant on vertical concepts that, even when they're operating them at a high level, are in the 50 to 55% range. I think that's what we're seeing. I do think hybridizing the quick game is the answer. But as much as traditional 95 white cross was built off that premise, you still don't see it much. I mean, the NFL, I really caught on to it last year, and I've never really seen the two-man stick without the vertical component on that side with what I would deem white cross. It's not traditional white cross, but they're effectively hitting those areas. I hadn't really seen that packaged together, but you can tell that when you hear McVay talk, like he wants to progress, like he wants to let the quarterback work across because of the different contours that he's seeing. So I think that certainly that is an answer. But with that being an answer, I guess this is where you research football. This is like what I want to ask you. Why do you think even that type of an answer isn't more prevalent? Like, why aren't we seeing, is it just we'll see it this year? Or why do you think people haven't caught on to that idea yet, that it's not really a new idea, right?
Right.
That's what kind of keeps my mind going. Like you said, quick game, first down. That's great in a 7-on-7. And to me, you need that if you're not just going to throw incompletions all day. But that's good in real football. That's what moves the football, right? It's going to help you. It's going to help you win, and it's going to help alleviate, even if you're a run-focused offense, like you got a PA, you got to design RPOs, and you got to be pretty crafty with RPOs. That's what I've found, is to have an RPO that is really sound to solve the problems that you're looking for. You're going to have to be creative in how you package them. But to me, it's a low-hanging fruit to say, hey, this is our drop-back pass game. We're going to have a quick game that we feel really confident in, that we can package a couple different ways with a couple different backside concepts that handle a heavy cover 3 team or a quarters team, or even, solve some of the Tampa 2 problems. Package them together. Let's operate this in a 58 to 65, 67% range. And now all of a sudden we've got something that we can count on no matter what we're seeing. So to you, why don't we see it more?
I mean, I think, football is about fads, and it's about what's popular and what people are seeing. I think the passing game is still undertaught. I think there's more knowledge and there's more plays out there. I think it is really uncommon to have coaches who understand the degree of like execution and work that it takes to be good. There's this misperception of like, well, that quarterback's good and that receiver's good, so that's why they're good at the passing game. Well, I mean, the best passing teams are good. They're good every single year passing. So there's a degree of like, those guys are ahead of the game anyway, and they're going to work to execute that stuff. I agree totally with something you said about that. Really becomes your drop back. Defenses, linemen are not getting worse. They are getting better and better. And it is more and more rare to have kids who want to play offensive line. The ball has to come out. And you are getting more and more creative pressures. Having these as P&10 plays, third down answers, I think is just part of having an offense that can move the football in the modern game. And I think, just as an example, point blank, the old days of, all right, I'm running double slants versus 2 high, and versus 1 high, I'm running slant flat. Some of these defenses, if it's a quarters defense that's we call like 4 meg, and they're really playing man, but they can pass off switches, they want you to throw double slants to that. Their safety is driving on the inside slant. They're pressed on the outside. You have nothing. So what you did is you made your quarterback pick a side, and now he has no answer. With the hybrid model, I've got a quick game 1 high beater because I think they're 1 high. If they give me 2 high and it's no good, now I've got a progression, deeper drop concept that now beats 2 high. And then I can reverse that as well. Now you can cross the center line with the routes. You don't get locked into, I've just got to have this route outside the hash, this route outside the hash. Now you give the quarterback answers, and people get sick of hearing people say, well, I've got to give the quarterback answers. That is what good coaching is. Give your kids answers to the test.
Yeah, and I'm with you 100%. Is I think that it's just like any scheme in football. The scheme survives and exists because coaches evolve it to the problems that are being presented, right? Like you said, we can get in semantics, but the whole duo thing is, okay, I want to block it like gap, but I don't want to pool something. Great. That's evolution, right? It's evolution. And then now watch as really smart humans put their spin and their touch on it. Now all of a sudden, that's nearly a system. Within, you watch the NFL, it's nearly a system within itself that they balance with their outside zone or whatever. And then the outside zone is a system within itself. And to me, that's where, like you said, a couple of things that hit me. Passing game is undertaught. I know when I interviewed for this job, for the defensive head coach, hey, we want to kind of modernize the offense. And I said, I'm sure just like you, I'm always going to get misperceived of this guy throws it 75 times. He doesn't even run the football, which is incorrect. Every team I've had, we are very effective running. And if we aren't effective running, we're not any good. But what I told him in the interview process is we have to practice throwing the football, right? We have to believe in it. We have to go over to the other side and things that are very simple to you and I, but we have to have more than just a pat and go period or just a 5-minute routes on air where we're running standard routes with no reads, no progressions. If we want to be able to solve the answers on the test for you Friday night, for us Saturday. And even our head coach, who is extremely talented, is a young dude and studies football like you and I do, just from the inverse perspective. He said, I'd never thought of that, but that is exactly what this program needs. Is they not only need an identity within the pass game, but they need to know and believe it, and it needs to become second nature. And to me, that's a big piece of the puzzle that we talked about. But the other thing that I see you talk about with the hybridization is, and I loved how you said, if we think we're going against a one-high match Rip Liz team, it's cover 3, yeah, let's build our front side to get us the answer, or inverse it, right? And package it and be able to do some different things. So it's odd to me that it's gone away, but I do think that it's very necessary right now that in order to throw quick game, which both you and I truly believe in, not just to say, hey, look at us, we throw the ball. No, like to move the ball in a game. In 60-minute football game, we have to move the football effectively and balance it out. Even teams that have a run focus have always built in quick game. I mean, you go back to the oldest playbooks that you can find, there's always quick game built in there that is installed on day one. So to modernize it, to me, is just like what we're doing with all these other schemes. And it certainly is undertaught. I think, obviously, this whole podcast is it's undervalued. And it's unique to me because it is an integral part of any operation that's high level on offense at every single level. Like you said, it's not just a quarterback, or it's not just you have wide receivers. I mean, that's the biggest bailout is, oh, your quarterback was good. Well, you got to teach a quarterback. Like you said, you got to provide them with answers. And we already do that. We created RPOs to give a quarterback answers. We did this for 10 years and people got really good at it. What's different about doing it in a pass game, not a chuck and duck system? No, we're going to get 5.5 yards at a 75 to 80% clip on this. Why would we not want to incorporate that? And so, yeah, I think we could go on and on. What I kind of want to go to the next one is we've talked about some of these before, but I think that, packaging it we talked about hybridization, but what are some of the tools that you're seeing teams that are implementing this do well that maybe are still or are not necessarily packaged in a quick game that help make simple concepts better? That's what I always try to think about. How can we take a concept that has existed, a speed out and a stick route, and how can we make these better? How can we make fade flat applicable to now? What are some tools, whether we've discussed them before on together or not, that we have to carry this in order to have an effective passing operation?
I think you start with the Y-Cross family, however you're going to do that. The NFL teams, if you guys watch NFL film, you're going to see guys running a different style of Y-Cross than you typically are going to see in high school or even college sometimes, where it's more of this locked route that has a landmark. It's going to be more a through route, in the Shanahan-McVay family, where they're really, if it's truly a cover 2, too high type thing, it really becomes a post. And the NFL hashes have a lot to do with that. But what you're ending up doing, you're going to have a route that either crosses the center line or that opens up something else if it's not open. Whether it's the Y cross, if you watch those guys, you see typical Y cross where you're going to have that interior route, whatever it is, whether it's a cross or a through, you're going to have a dig. But now you're seeing new things like you're seeing, okay, there's a ton of people are running snag with a basic. That's a huge thing you're seeing at every level of football. And there's some really good stuff with that. And you can mess with the backs route. You can change who's running that anchor route or control route and who's running the dig. That's good. I really like the things that some of the guys are doing where they're implementing Y cross. And instead of having that like 14-yard dig, that's a tough throw where you got to move in the pocket, they're running underneath routes that are a different timing. So they're running loop or retrace or China routes where they're running a 4-step quick out, and then they're taking 4 more steps and working back underneath the grass. The quarterback's already on the move anyway. And so being able to have that guy checking down underneath, it's an easier throw. There are all kinds of variations that you can find in these different playbooks out there. Those are ones that I've seen that people have had a lot of success with. Everyone runs snag. I talked to an NFL guy that said the best backside tag going is the juke snag version on the backsides. People are used to seeing snag. So I've got quick game on the front side, and now I'm going to have number 2, instead of running the corner, he's running a swirl route. Number one, instead of running the snag, is going to turn into a juke or a jerk route and cross the ball. You can still 6-man pro with your back and have him either check arrow or check swing. But now you're still impacting the same space. Why am I not throwing this quick game? It may be because I'm getting an interior linebacker that's a rat or a hook curl player that's getting out and he's becoming that extra defender. So I don't have that 2-on-1. Well, in all these variations, I'm replacing box linebackers and I'm creating some type of curl flat or 2-on-1 on the hook defender, depending on the coverage, whether you're attacking one high or two. I think those things are awesome. One thing I would be crazy not to talk about, because one of my big off-season projects is something that's been around now for a couple years, but these escort concepts. And I've not talked to a single coach who is a defensive coach who has not said, look, this sucks and I don't like it and it breaks rules that we teach our kids all the time. I've not talked to a single offensive coach who hasn't said, hey, I should run that more. And I think implementing it it got really hot in college to run kind of the OTB with one of the guys on the backside of this. And that, you're seeing so much more Tampa now, and the non-traditional Tampas are a big deal. Brian Flores and the NFL is popularizing that. So you're seeing them coming from everywhere. But having that OTB right over the ball, that became really popular. And what you saw a lot of college guys do is run really a corner with the other receiver, whether he was number one or whether he was number two in switch releasing. And kind of the idea is you can take two guys with that. And now, because I have the tight end or the fullback going to the flat to block for the running back, I'm creating a lot of space and the ability to have an explosive. One of the things that I've seen and just watching, literally probably 100 and something cuts of this from college, NFL, high school, there is a ton of space in kind of the hook area that I don't think people are taking advantage of. And so because you've got to push an interior linebacker out to play that swing, you have to. Well, that now you just created grass because you have no hook player. You've taken the hook and the flat player. They're having to play the back and the tight end that are going out to run the escort swing portion of it. I think there's a lot of grass that you're seeing guys hit it for sure. I've seen tons of NFL teams, but you're also seeing, like, if the guy just curled up right here, maybe there's an evolution at some point where you read whether or not you run a corner or you run the curl type deal. But I think that's taken spacing that you hear a lot of people rip on, and some of it's legitimate. Some of the things that people say about spacing, but it's kind of evolved spacing into a different deal.
And that's what I like about it is if you watch the cuts that are out there, is it's an enhancement to base concepts that already exist. And like you said, I've had my own qualms with spacing, and you got to try to find one that it answers match coverage and whatnot. But the fourth human is already making defensive distribution more difficult, right? And very challenging. And then a simple answer is just like back in the day when we would run 3x10 personnel trips open and we're trying to isolate this X. Well, guess what? This is going to isolate your quote unquote X, and you can run quick game back there. You could run your speed out back there. You could run a deep choice, whatever you like in an isolation matter based on who your person is. This is going to do that if they want to defend the four strong. But I like it because, like you said, it's layered on spacing. It's layered on snag. I've seen it layered on sail, where I think that sail route, we just watched a cut up of 50 of these in our level of the one that ducks underneath like it's Y cross and really gets into that hook zone. And if you are teaching grass reads, you can kind of just sit yourself in there and, like you're saying, replace that hook dropper underneath of any type of post safety. And it takes it back to where we all option bubble game. Okay, we can still have that throw in our system, right? But now we are not only putting a lead blocker in front of them, and usually it's personnel better to take on the pressure of a nickel or somebody driving downhill. But what I like about it is it's packaged all these different things that already exist. It creates a new tool, a new issue for the defense, but you're really not, you got to teach the timing and the spacing of the swing, but we've done that before. We've done things like that before, right? And to me, that's low-hanging fruit because it already exists. And it probably takes, like you said, okay, you got a problem with spacing. Well, boom, we've got a layer on it now that's going to force the defense's hand, right, to dictate really how they play the backside, hook player. Like, that's going to tell you which side of the football to go to, right? And if you're going to get an overpush team, if you got a quarterback that can exploit that space, throwing the ball, there's going to be that isolation. But even going back to when Lincoln Riley, like, run a draw back there, run a draw, there's no player there. He's all over there. So I think That's certainly one of them. And I like what you led that in with of seeing different versions of Y cross. And whether we're talking about Y cross or spacing, stick, smash, Hank, whatever it is, I think that truly is where I'm seeing the innovation. And you've been doing this for a while. That's how I first got really hooked on what you're doing is you were taking standard ideas and repackaging. And the route you talked about, the China route, one of the biggest cheat codes in quick game football is what I would call lateral double moves. It's a lateral double move. We're setting the hook to here's the speed out that not everybody runs, but a lot of people run. And now we're going to return on it that can sit in space. It can sit in a void in the flat if it's open. It can run back across someone's face. It can answer a match or a man deal where I have a double move. I'm giving a kid an answer. And it's fourth or secondary in our progression to allow it to work, to either beat man or find the pocket, like you said, that's over voided. And again, one of the tools that I like to teach our kids, and you're in a new spot too, is I call it a heat map. When we teach a concept, we draw the very basic 2x2 open 10 personnel. Here's smash and here's Y cross. And we take a big old circle on each of these landmarks. And we say, at the end of the day, anything in this family is going to attack these spaces, just like you're saying. Now, whether we clear it and run a dig behind it, whether we run 2 digs, whether we're running a China route that is now not at 14, it's at 5 yards, and we have some type of seam read or bender read, and it's all the same timing. It's all the same spots in the field. But to me, the biggest advantage it gives you is it's adjusting the base concepts that every single defensive coordinator matches on day one of camp. They're going to put the cones out there, no matter how good their pass defense is. They're going to match smash, Hank, four verts, shallow dig, right? And probably some type of fade flat and spacing. That's what they're going to match, but all from standard splits, all on traditional timing. And that's great. They've done a good job of snuffing those things out. Now let's change the tempo on you. Let's change it. Like you're saying, post snap, we're going to be in the same spots. It's the same as anything. Run concepts of football are the same. The pass concepts are the same. But how we do it, I think that is a nugget that people are just missing. Like it just is. Like if you watch the NFL, they're not missing it, right? Those guys have got it figured out. They're doing the same thing, but they're changing the tempo and timing that a defense is used to seeing that route combination present itself with.
No doubt. I think you and I talked about this a little bit the other day, but I won't reveal too many of our stuff we're putting in and installing a new offense. But like you can take a traditional route, and if you change the splits or the spacing of that route, it is new. I mean, you take something that somebody could say is as easy to match as Hank, but if you're in a different split, if you're in a bunch split and you're getting to those places, those same spots in a non-traditional way, it can freak people out. In our area, box checks to bunch defensively are a huge deal. Like that stuff just grows around. Guys move around. They move around the same area. So like we see a lot of box checks to bunch. Well, they're awesome. And depending on how you do it, they can take away a lot of traditional bunch pass plays and they can give you a lot of trouble. But like that same box check can make curl flat great again. But all of a sudden you now have a really clean curl flat read where people are like, well, that's not, you can't throw that stuff anymore. Well, you can now because this defense that's a super aggressive man quarters defense just bunch checked and got out of the stuff that their kids want to do. And now their 4-star safety can't drive on the curl because his coach just checked him and put him in a trap coverage. And so now you're just running, and we've talked about that stuff, but I would totally agree with what you're saying of like, here are the spots that we're going to attack. Now, what are the ways? That's where our creativity comes in. And that's why people think you're putting in 10,000 pass plays and you're like, no, we're not. Like we just changed the way we lined up and it looks different to you. It's the same exact pass play. The teaching part of it and everything we're talking about, that's what gets lost is, great teaching is what it's about now. Everybody's got all the stuff on Twitter. You can never run it all. And I'm the worst. I love every pass play ever created. Oh, yeah. I love to talk to these guys that are just haters and like hate certain passes so they can like be like, no, that actually sucked. You shouldn't run that. But we all have access to that. Can you teach the stuff that you have? I think that's the key to everything that we're talking about.
Yeah, and I think you've always done a fantastic job in your career of finding the different sounding boards of people that you can talk to it about. And the beautiful thing about your system, and then mine, I piggybacked on a lot of things you did, is it was a slow evolution. One of the thoughts that I had, and this is kind of a summation of what we're talking about, is the evolutions and the advancement in any industry usually aren't overnight. They are slow builds, right? That you're solving real problems that are happening right in front of your face. And all of a sudden, like you said, now we have this untraditional launch point for a very basic concept. Like you said, I had to take Hank out 6-7 years ago because it was just matched out, right? But honestly, like you said, it's spinning all the way back around to where if you understand how to manipulate the release, you know how to manipulate the match defender of whoever that underneath piece is. There's some of the best curl windows ever, like right now. Yeah. And it's in all the film. You can go watch any NFL team that throws a football at all. They're doing it. And it's the same thing that I think happened in the run game, where the compression sets got really big for being able to solve edge issues, right? Where we want to keep receivers on the field. Maybe we got a hybridized guy, but we're solving edge issues and getting our guys to these fits on these alley players easier. That's an evolution that the game spread out and then it compressed in. Well, the same thing can happen in the pass game, where you mentioned it. Every day that we go to practice here at Georgetown, we're going against the number 3 defense in the country. It's a very good defense that has been taught really well. Here's this new guy, comes on the offensive side. One of the best compliments that we were given is subtle variance in where your people are starting and departing from changes everything of a really sound defense. Like this defense, if you don't come out to practice, it's going to eat you alive, right? But subtle differences. And I think that is probably one of the things that gets lost, is the things that need to happen in the pass game are really right in front of our faces. And that to me is where I kind of get caught up. And that's, I look back at the system we run, and it was a slow build over time and certain things, but I always go back to, how do we keep our concepts advantageous to us? And really it's the players, the kids that are triggering it. And there's all these different ways, but you mentioned it: 4 strong, condensing your split, widening your split, purposely bunching to create a check that is the check, and having the answer detailed, or having a 2-play combo that you hear the check after one drive. You're going to hear the bunch check. They're going to say it. Okay, that's this check. Here's the answer to it. And it's almost an alert, right? So that's where I think that, I guess, is a little bit confusing to me, is that we've seen such strong advancements in the run game, the play action game, that some of those same tools are really, really, really positive for this type of a game, that you can call it, depending on your 10 to 25 times. And again, like we said, these are going to be high percentage deals. They just are. Having tools that are high percentage to me is like a must when I go in there. I want to figure out, how can I make sure that the ball is getting distributed to our skill players at all different levels of the field. Yeah, simple split adjustments, flooding zones, which I think there's some really good 3-level flood stuff right now, but 4-level flooding is really good. And then something we talked about off air that I know both of us are believers in the NFL is a huge proponent of it, is motioning to create advantages, right? And motioning to decode man zone, that's good, that's helpful. But there's motioning to, again, change launch points and change the release pattern or tempo of a receiver, that are relatively simple, that can be applied to really basic things and produce high quality results.
Yeah, I want to talk motion because that fires me up.
Well, the holidays have come and gone once again, but if you've forgotten to get that special someone in your life a gift, well, Mint Mobile is extending their holiday offer of half off unlimited wireless. So here's the idea. You get it now, you call it an early present for next year. What do you have to lose? Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Limited time 50% off regular price for new customers. Upfront payment required. $45 for 3 months, $90 for 6 months, or $180 for 12-month plan. Taxes and fees extra. Speeds may slow after 50 gigabytes per month when network is busy. See terms.
I want to go back to something you said. I think one of the most underrated things, and I'm talking to any offensive coordinator out there, but especially young ones, but one of the most underrated things that I think is just constantly overlooked, you are going to be impacted by the defensive scheme that your team runs. Yet there's no way around that. And so, it's not necessarily right. It's reality. There are guys that have gotten fired because they're okay. They can't move the ball against their own defense and their head coach gets pissed off. There's craziness out there. So there's going to be pressure for you to move the ball and for you to do things. So especially if you're playing a non-traditional defense, let's say you're playing, a good friend of mine has a really, really good 3-high safety defense that is part of his deal. Well, he's like, look, that's a specialized thing. People game plan for that. So I have to see what other people do, so that you have to build in specialty periods for Skelly of being like, hey, listen, you can't run that stuff right now. We have to run something that's not, a non-traditional Tampa coverage, 3 cloud. We have to run some basic stuff everybody else is running. So you need to be aware as you go into your scheme. Like there may be things that in your region you really, really need to run, but it's terrible against your defense. You're going to have to find time to be able to do that stuff. So it's actually beneficial if you're like, I know some of the guys that you've coached with and some of the guys I've coached with are so multiple on defense and doing so many advanced things. It actually helps you because you're like, okay, we've seen this. This is, we're going to see everything in America every day.
I think the term I came up with, to your point, I think it's great. I don't think I realized that until I changed jobs a couple times, is I look at it as, sometimes it can be frustrating, but I look at it as a stress test to the concepts that we're employing, right? You and I both believe in, we obviously have beaters and things like that, but most of the stuff we carry, we believe it provides answers to multiplicity, right? That's why we believe in it. Well, you go against a very unique defense or one that can ebb and flow, you're going to stress test your concepts. And I would rather know that in spring ball or training camp than somebody's absolutely locking down a core concept on a Friday night in August or a Saturday afternoon in August. I think that you're right. You don't want to quote unquote scheme for your defense, but you better be able to move the ball. And I think that's one of the main things that when I got here, this place is humming the defensive product that's really good. They expect to not have the football moved on them. And I said, they may shut us down. They may shut us out. They might blank us. But there's got to be a mentality that we're going to attack them as well, right?
Yeah.
And you know this as much as anybody, the greatest compliment you can give sometimes comes from your own building of, we had to adjust our really good defense because of this thing that you did. Or the inverse, like my offense or this scheme doesn't handle this pressure really well. Good kudos, right? And that's where a lot of this, and then if you can go in the film room, which we've been doing, with said opposite side of the staff and converse where it's not in a competitive environment and figure out what tools on each side of the football are problematic. Now you can build within your own scheme on both sides, essentially rule-breaking schemes that you're going to put out there against the opposition.
And the motion that we talked about that I totally threw us off topic on, I think I'm a huge proponent of motion, first of all. I think if you look at some of the best offenses in football right now, they're very motion oriented. I understand that there are people who have some opposition to it. So like, first of all, O-line coaches, you'll often hear complain about it muddying up the box in the run game. And I get that. I do. I think that's sort of overblown because if you look at some of the teams that have the highest motion tendency, like in NFL and college, they have some of the best run games. But, we're going to, whatever, we'll complain about whatever. But I do think, like there's the old Peyton Manning story of like, I like things static so I can see what's going on. And I get some of that. But I think like for me, I think my counter argument would be there are motions you could use that aren't going to completely screw the quarterback up unless you're teaching it incorrectly. I think there's 5 things I think if without just, you can get into 20 different reasons to run motion. But I think for motion in the pass game, there's like 5 things or so that I just think are crucial for what it can do. Like if I can have a motion that I know I'm going to get a standardized defensive reaction, like when I do this, I will get this. I'm nub 1x3 and I motion a slot to the tight end side. And every single time I'm going to get a lock call on the tight end and the corner. And now I'm not going to have press. So I'm basically going to have a free flat every time. If that's the reaction I get every time, I'm completely dictating to the defense because that's their rule and I know their rule. So that helps your quarterback. That doesn't hurt your quarterback. If I can say, if we do this, this will be open. That helps to me. That helps the quarterback. I think it defines, you can gather information. Andrew Coverdale was on the pod a couple years ago and talked about GIs and having information gathering formations or motions. If I can give the quarterback, look, if we're going to motion, and that's as simple as the NFL, line up the running back out wide. At high school, you don't see as much of that. You're not going to get corners over or whatever, but you can still have motion that gives you some information about what they're doing. I think regardless, if I'm the quarterback and it confuses me a little, it confuses me, but I want guys getting a free release and motion it a free release to guys that can't win necessarily one-on-one. The ability to just, hey, I'm going to get a release. It's going to be free. And now on this curl that I'm going to run, like we've been talking about, okay, instead of having to have incredible technique, hit the guy at the top of the route, shove him by, break back, like now, okay, I just got a free release and I just run my route. Okay. Like that's pretty beneficial. I think motion to create leverage. Just, we've been talking about like the 2-man stick. How many times have you seen some of these NFL teams super fast motion a guy in the NFL and they're just running 2-man stick and he just out leverages a guy who can't get out Happens all the time. So motion for leverage, that doesn't confuse the quarterback. That gets your first read wide open, which we all want. And then I think always when you're motion, you're disguising the intent of what you're doing, where I'm going to motion this way in order to make you think I'm doing one thing, I'm going to do something else. I mean, that's why we motion anyway. I had a college coach tell me in the off season, and he was like, I was kind of talking about some of this, and he was like, Josh, that sounds really fancy, but I'm going to tell you the reality is that 95% of all motion that is called in college football is just motion. It's just window dressing, and guys, they're just motioning guys. And there's absolutely truth to that. But I think you can use things. Watch Andy Reid and the Chiefs and what they do with these silly little motions. You'll hear people say, why are they making Travis Kelce move 4 yards on a motion? Well, because that's giving Patrick Mahomes information. They're figuring things out so that he can read it. And so Travis Kelce can just freelance and run, an option route with 900 different options. I think the motion in the pass game we're seeing tons of it in the run game. It's a huge part of all the Rams stuff and, and fly sweeps, jet sweeps, that kind of stuff. You're not seeing as it's growing, but you're not seeing as much of it in the pass game. But I think that stuff can be just short motion in or fast motion out of a stack or into a stack is so simple and so good. And it makes defensive backs uncomfortable.
With those two motions, because I've heard that's a great, those five. I mean, I agree with literally all five of those. Okay, you don't want to disturb the box count. Motion outside of the core of the offense. There's plenty of motions, right? And you can do it with slow tempo. You can do it fast tempo. You can go in and out, right? You can go in to come back out. And like you said, I love the leverage piece. I love creating free releases. Obviously, all of us, we want to be able to line up and, like we said, 3-by-1 and put an X over there, and he's just going to win against press release. I've coached long enough to know you don't got those guys 99% of the time. Even the best guys I've ever coached, sub 50% in a win rate in that scenario. Like you mentioned, if I can gain a simple edge, right, from leverage, a free release, a softer coverage contour for our guys, it's going to have immense results. And like you said, a lot of the motions that are prevalent in the NFL are what I would call cheap motions. Like what you said, just creating a stack. They're cheap motions. They're very simple to teach. The kids like it because they're on the move and they see, I call the one the Travis Kelce motion, the one the Tyreek Hill. You watch it on TV, it's like that's what they're doing. Again, like the 4-by-1 idea or compressing or widening a split, it adds a layer to very standard concepts that now differentiates them. And like you said, maybe it's disguising the intent or it's just giving it a different pace, a different flow that the defense has to react to. But we're still the same. Progression's the same. The read cues are the same. I think the two motions you mentioned, the short motion and the fast out motion, I think that those add an element in the traditional 6-for-6 RPO world on alley defenders that is really simple. It does not disturb the box, but it really puts a cue on where is that fit player going to come from? Can we out leverage them to outflank them to the flat? Can we widen an edge to run counter or something back underneath of them? So those are it's a motion that can apply to schemes that all of us, every single person listening already has in there. And now you've layered a concept. And I think that's so critical. You and I talk about that and rave over the Shanahan tree. They layer concepts in an unbelievable way that allows it to win for 17 weeks. And then the best ones are doing it for another 1 to 4 games. There are cheap motions that have huge ROI on things. You don't have to change any plays. They're the same plays over and over and over.
You mentioned, we talk about 4 strong. I'm a big fan of 4 strong, but defenses they're getting a lot better at it. But now with motion, you disguise your 4 strong. And that is a whole other issue. I heard the other day on a podcast, Cody Alexander, who's amazing. And if, 90% of defense coordinators in America under 30 are listening to everything he says. And he was talking about when you create quads, whichever way you create quads, if it's 4-by-1, that is a problem. If he says that's a problem, it's a problem. So doing that without letting them just be able to know, hey, we're going to push this, it's going to be fine. All of a sudden now you've created an ability to get all kinds of things that you want just through that motion. So that's a great point for sure. One of the things with all these guys, like who are you, pass game, diversity, running different things, having a full drop back, quick game, play action, screen package. Who are some guys at different levels? Like we talked about this earlier. I've kind of got a list of a few things, but like who are some guys that you're like, you guys need to watch or you need to be studied?
And through, I think, this last season's episode of this very podcast, I think got me in contact with this guy. But I think at San Jose State, Craig Stutzman, he's off the run and shoot tree. They were 6th in the country in his first year. They were 6th in the country in passing. And obviously they have run and shoot elements, but I think he's done a really nice job of blending it with, he's really strong in the seam read game of videos I've seen by you. They will run, there'll be an empty, they'll compress sets. It's multi-layered. They'll throw quick game. They'll throw RPOs. They'll throw it vertically. They read post-snap, but it's done in such a manner that it's just a really clean operation. And anywhere he's gone, he's had really successful offenses. But we put on that tape this year, and you could just tell, especially for a first year of a system, man, what a great job they did. They do it against all different defenses and levels of competition. He's one that I really believe in. The other one that I've gotten a heavy kick right now is watching Syracuse from last year. And I don't know if you've watched them yet, but they're the first team that non-NFL that I turned on the film. And I believe they led the nation in passing last year, right? Syracuse. And they ran 7 different forms of classic stick option, from empty, 3x1, 2x2 motion. And I'm like, yes, somebody's doing it. And then it doesn't help the argument I have of, oh, they led the nation in passing. Okay, well, why doesn't everybody do it? But they do a really nice job of blending 12 personnel RPO game, what we would deem to be a slot option pass game with a clean play action. You could tell that what I really like about what they did is with the portal world, they took Kyle McCord, who obviously is a great quarterback, but relatively speaking, he's not running around creating. They're keeping him in rhythm. And it's you can just tell, like when you watch any flow of their game, you don't even have to cut it up. You can see that the designs they have strong intent. They have answers. He understands how to solve pressure issues. They'll be an empty quite a bit, and they know how to solve pressure issues. They create those isolations. I'd heard about them all year, but I'd never watched and put it on. And that was well worth, especially for what you and I like. It's just a year one of an operation. Really nice job. And they have good players, obviously, but in the relative scheme of things, they don't have freaks out there, which I think is another testament to the coaching. Those are 2 of the ones that really, I think at Texas State, I think obviously they've done a great job, and now we're going to get to see that on the big stage. And then, at the college level, the guy that you've talked to him before, but I think another guy, he's actually going to be in the same league we're here, is I think Drew Chance. He finally got some flowers last year. He does a really good job, and he's a young guy, and his operation is really clean. They post-snap read, but they do it with great tempo. You can tell he coaches the quarterback really well. They do run the football effectively and package and layer it really well. But those are the ones that, to me, have caught my attention. And obviously the NFL piece, right? I think that's my main source, just like you, is my main source of making sure how they run the slot option game and whatnot. But those college offenses have really caught my attention.
Yeah, that's really good. I know it's big time and everybody's seen it, but I'm telling you, if you don't watch the stuff that Sark does at Texas every year, the creativity and the stuff that they're doing and how complete the offense is and like the evolution, it's a must watch every year. NFL wise, you mentioned we watch NFL. I really enjoyed the Vikings this year, seeing some of the stuff that they did and how diverse they were. And obviously, Sam Darnold, the success that he had, but they did a lot of really cool, unique things, even within kind of that tree, just extra stuff. I think the thing about those systems, like there's so much controversy kind of surrounding Shanahan about different things, but for us, like there is a designer that Shanahan or McVay or LaFleur or O'Connell, there's a designer that they're going to come up with every week that is off of like the things that they do, that literally someone like me at the high school level could just run as a base passing game concept because it's really good. It has answers for everything. For them, it's like the 7th or 8th layer of something that they're doing because they're trying to develop some kind of reaction to what they're getting. But for us, you like look at it and you go, that's just a sound, really good passing concept that they ran twice in 2024. Those are great places to get ideas. He's been on the pod. If you guys, a lot of guys don't know him. Colin Thomas at Liberty High School in Arizona and Peoria, Arizona, he just keeps winning state championships and it seems like he never loses. The diversity of what they're doing on offense at the high school level, the volume, the level of execution, and how much diversity there is from what we're talking about, quick game, RPOs, play action, drop back, is really, really good. So if there's high schools out there, he probably, you can harass him and he'll get mad at me. But really, really good stuff there at that level when we're talking about diversity. So that's good. People have somebody. I know I've got Syracuse in the queue. I have not watched them. So that's very interesting and intriguing for you to talk about that. So that's some good stuff. One thing I want to get to be sure, because this thing will go forever. We can talk for hours and hours. So I got 2 years off from calling offense. So I'm back doing it. And that 2 years really gave me a whole lot of time to reflect and evaluate and try and figure things out. And you get time to go, all right, this is what I'm going to do when I install in spring. So like you've had 2 consecutive kind of put in a new offense things. Talk to me about like, how do you determine, all right, this is what's going in. This is what we're going to do from place to place. Because you're going in and you may have an idea, but you don't really know your kids yet. You don't know, okay, well, like they're good at this, he's good at this. And like, what are you looking at? And we can kind of just talk through that for a second, because I think that's important for anybody. People are going to move. How do you determine from year to year? What do we carry? Those are all questions that kind of, we can roll into from this.
Absolutely. No, I think that you're right. I hadn't experienced that until changing jobs last year, and then this year kind of getting the full autonomy to go with it. And my mentality was, I like to, again, we talked about a heat map within a concept. I like to think about when we're looking at the full picture, can we, with our base, so let's say we're going to go 3 runs, we'll have 1 to 2 like traditional 5-step deals where we're trying to push the ball down the field. And then we're going to have a bucket of our hybrid quick game, 5 to 6 concepts. Can we effectively create a heat map of spaces that we can attack on the field with that outlook? And so basically what we did was, all right, here's the core concepts that I believe in, I've had success with. This is the ways we run them, and did a heat map. Okay, do we have a run that can work us in the A gap, something in the B gap, something in the C gap? Do we have the appropriate baseline RPOs to protect it? What are we throwing off of it? Okay, there's one sector of it. And then in the hybridized quick game, which we live in, all right, here are the 4 or 5 concepts I really like. What comes off of them? How can we protect them? All right. While we're figuring out the schemes, we're figuring out formationally and motion-wise how we are going to, what needs to go in, essentially, because we know that this tool is going to help 4 concepts. That's probably a tool that we need to install. This tool is only a really, like you said, it's a week 7. We're going to need it at some point, but it's not going to foster a ton of ROI, but it'll be very specific. So that might be on the back burner. And then I'll tell you what happened is probably halfway through spring ball, we had 60% of our stuff in, and it was going pretty well. I made a conscious effort we had 1 or 2 directions. We're either going to go into Vikings bunch world and we're just going to go nuts with all this stuff, or we're going to live in these core concepts and continue to find new ways to run them, to continue to get reps on them. And I decided, I believe it was the correct decision, we're not installing anymore. After the 8th practice of 15, we stopped installing. We didn't put in designers. We didn't put in red zone stuff. And what it really forced us to do is, like you said, teach the concepts against every different defensive contour and really stress test them and understand inside and out where the fault points are. It also made us naturally learn how to protect them, because even when you're just in spring ball, like defense isn't going to let you just keep doing something. So we had to learn to protect them, which essentially created more ways to run those concepts, more layers onto those concepts. Hey, when we get this reaction, we're either alerting into it, or as the play caller, I know, hey, when we see this, the subsequent play call is going to be this. So we're educating our players on what a flow looks like. And to me, it's all about, we feel very strongly that our concepts answer a lot of problems. And I wanted to truly see the core value of what I believed in and what we decided as a staff that we were going to represent ourselves with. How much squeeze could we get out of? And It was an interesting experiment. There were times where, you know how it is, like you and I, we like a lot of stuff and we need this tool and we need that tool, but it really forced us to understand those base concepts inside and out. And then also hit with this. Afterwards, we're in the cut up and rephasing part of the deal, getting ready to kind of the new installation for the fall. And Drew Hollinshed is at Coastal Carolina. He's at Western Kentucky. He certainly knows how to throw the football and have good offenses. He told me one of the best exercises he's done is when you walk back in to recreate that package, you ask your staff, what can we not live without? What are the very core fundamental concepts that we have to have in our system? And what ended up happening with that is our staff did a great job of it. Was really tight to a handful of run, 3 of those hybrid quick games, a drop back, and then a play action series. And so we started the rephasing of it with, okay, that's our core. That's what we believe in. We have these cut ups. We've seen it good, bad, happy, and sad. Now we know where the starting point is and what we want to build from. If these are our core, everything has to support that. And to me, that's what systemization is. Someone asked me, like, you always talk about system over plays. It does the collective operation enhance and protect and define the core concepts that you have in your system so that you can continuously call them. That to me is what systemization is. And that's how the motions and the backfield sets and the layers tied together, because we know what we're standing on. We know what ground we're standing on. It's not 20 concepts. It's like 7, 8 concepts, run, pass, and everything included. All right, let's start building inside out. So that was kind of the process that we undertook. I'd be curious to see like how yours differed or what your process is after coming off those 2 years of kind of looking at your own stuff.
Yeah, I think the first thing is you realize if you've been at a place a while, and you know this because this happened at one of your prior stops, the amount of what you build and what becomes common knowledge and what coaches understand allows you to go beyond what it can look to some people like it's insane. And it's like, well, this is not a big deal at all. The kids just know this stuff. Probably the question, and I don't know why these things just happen. The question I've been asked the most this offseason probably is about like, how much variation do you have from year to year? I've been asked that probably a dozen times. And I think about it in a slightly different way. That's probably, maybe it's stupid and off kilter, but it's the way I think about it is I don't really think about 80% pass game carryover, 95% run game. I think of it as, for us, there are certain routes within our system that are foundational. And it does not matter what we do overall scheme-wise. They're going to be in there somewhere. Like, we are going to run seam reads. Now, from year to year, there may be 2 or 3 different ways that we do that, and we may not run one year, and we may run another. We're going to run seam reads. We're going to run an option route. We're going to run our version of a hunt and how we teach like hunts and basics, that form of dig. Like, those are universal. They're the root of all kinds of things. We have to get those taught. And so it's 100% carryover on those things. Yeah. You're going to have from year to year things that you're going to mess with. I always want to, you want to stay cutting edge and you want to look at what people are doing. But I think you've got to look at, for me, something I did a bad job at some previous stops, I think, is really looking at the schedule. We're the same kind of this air raid background of like, well, we're going to run good versus everything things and we're going to roll with it. And that's true. And that should be true for probably over 80% of your stuff. But if you see one Tampa 2 team, I'm just using it as an example because we brought it up, a year, you can have your Tampa 2 beater and you can scar them up and roll with it and go on about your business for the rest of the season. If you see 4 or 5 of those teams, okay, that one beater is not going to work. Now, hopefully you've got base stuff that's going to attack what they're doing, but like, you're going to have to say, okay, we see 7-man teams this year. You better have some answers for man. And so that's part of the way you need to build things in, I think. And I haven't always, and that's hard in high school, especially because you have turnover and you don't know who's coaching who or what they're even doing from year to year sometimes. But knowing we are going to see this, we might as well work this. That's something I think we did probably a better job of in spring than we have in some other places. I talked to my buddy Jay Wilkinson, who, I talked to him about install, and he was saying, I like to go just 2x2 this day, 3x1 this day. I haven't really done that. We did that this year. The defensive coaches obviously loved it because they could say, this is all our 2x stuff, so we're going to work that. But that worked well as a program. That was new for me, doing it that way. And then we kind of jumped in. It's something I took from you, kind of the Browse guys model of the 1A, 1B, 2A, 2B. Yep. So we really, our install 1 was really 2 different days that we worked that install. And then the same thing with 2. And we also, just like what you were talking about, we've kind of like, after we hit sort of day 5 in high school spring in Georgia, it's like, all right, where are we going? And for us, it's funny you said we did the exact same thing. We didn't put anything else in. It was like, this is what we're going to do. We may dress up a couple things because we do have to play a competitive spring game against somebody, and let's make sure we make the kids successful. But that was sort of I don't want to get in dangerous territory, but I have a bunch of different hot takes about different things. But, the less is more thing, I know what people mean when they say that, but it's not really true. No, it's not. More is more. The more you can be good at, the better you are. So there's keep it simple, stupid, and et cetera, et cetera. Yes, we all get that. But what that does sometimes, I think, is it puts guys in a box of not stretching themselves or stretching their kids. And so when you find that this is where we need to be, then you stay there. But then there's going to be a point where kids are going to want to go beyond that. And I'll tell you this is totally off topic, but all I've been told for 5 years is these kids, it's got to be electronic. It's got to be online. You got to have access to do this. Man, I spent untold hours. I made tutorials for all of our stuff. They could watch it on their phone. None of them are over 10 minutes. The high school attention span, they say is age +1. And I kept it under 10 minutes. We had everything possible electronic that you could want. I'm telling you, I don't think we had a kid on offense that did not ask me for a hard copy playbook. I don't know what's going on with kids today, but apparently we're going back to regressing from the digital age. I don't know.
Yeah, I told our guys, the mapping ground for me is whiteboard with film to accommodate it. And to that point, I think I really agree with what you said of understanding your schedule. But something that I don't think I understood, I thought maybe would just be probably a really poor thought of mine, is like, it's just going to carry over, is a mentality on top of a scheme when you're in a new place, like that is the pivotal element, right?
Very true.
And that's something I don't think you just think, well, all kids want to be a part of a good offense, but a lot of times you're educating them on what that is and why it is that way, right? And the point I was going to make about the whiteboard is teaching something with passion on a whiteboard that I'm the same way as you. There was no modern stuff going on, but teaching it with passion and letting them stand up and, hey, go over to the side of this room and walk through that. Do you like that motion? Like, what do you think? What's your feedback? That to me is some of the things that I overlooked, but I think when I get feedback from players or assistant coaches, whether they believe the scheme like I do or not, I think that's what comes back to me is they walked out of the spring knowing there's a mentality for this offense. There's a way that we're going to operate. There's a standard that is going to be held in everything we do. We don't just go out there and just throw the ball around like, oh, we're going to operate with precision and focus and intent. And I think that the reason I really like listening to you and Dub and Coach Coverdale, like there's passion within the concept that you're talking about, whatever it is. You could talk about what I've watched you clinic on, all kinds of stuff that I don't even run, but I just like hearing people that are passionate about the product. And to me, that's what's going to resonate in an old school manner, that every day you show up, you're excited to teach this concept, right? You're excited. You know how it is. You just start a new job. You show kids that you're going to run option routes, and they're like, yeah, that's awesome. And then you detail like, hey, you got to be a thinker to run option routes, right? And you're going to have to study film, and it gets a little bit, in the weeds, but every day showing up and coaching them through it. And that's what you turn on any soundbite of Sean McVay. He's excited to talk football in the smallest detail. And then I don't know how this ties into that, but that's just one thing I learned of. Luckily, it happens naturally for both of us, but that's what I took away is I think we did a great job of understanding what schemes needed to go in. But what I really think we established was a mentality for how we operate, how we think, the way we view the game, the way that we have to watch film, and how every single clip and every single rep we take can be an educating piece. We talked about our systems. I look at our system that it should be Chat GPT. The more you put into it, the smarter it gets, and the more that you can operate it against, right? And the illusion of the less plays, more ways mentality is like, yeah, we're keeping it confined, but I'm just like you. When we stopped installing, we were running it in ways we never even thought of, because we're not going to just run the same stuff every day. So we kept the concept the same, but there was all these different ways and personnels and things that we did to try to just keep, like you said, keep it exciting. But I think that passion piece is so critical. I think you can capture the short attention spans, or these guys don't know how to learn. That's the other thing I thought you were going to say too, is you hear it all the time. It's really in the pass game. Well, our kids can't do that. What's the title of what we do? We're a coach. We're an educator. Like, that's insane. It's crazy to me. So it just kind of, you got me on a tangent there. That's one of my tangents. But I think that all that tied together is really interesting when you start a new job. Definitely there's some in that, that little tirade we both went on there. There's some really valuable pieces that as you go in that I certainly am carrying over from now until I hang up the whistle. But for guys that are in that spot of really thinking about how you want to do it, but just make sure you go through your process and really teach your concepts as many times as possible. You and I, it's famous to us, we did goof for 2 hours. All the kids that played for me thought I was insane. And I'm like, no, we probably could have gone for 5, right? But we were just teaching each other. We were practicing teaching. Hey, when you see this, last year, I remember, hey, drop 8. What do you do when there's a vice type of defender versus an option route? Perfect. Like, we're teaching all the time. And I think those are just some valuable lessons I've learned along the way.
Never discount how important propaganda is in trying to sell your kids on your competence and the stuff that you're doing, and generating belief is such a big part of dealing with kids today. They have to believe that you're authentic. You can't be fake. You're not going to fool them. And they need to know that you're competent. That's their expectation. Well, let's go one more thing because we're already going long. I don't know. Keith's going to kill me. But one more thing, because let's go straight ball again. Double mug, A-gap, 6-man up stuff. I know I did a bunch of research on that. I've got kind of my answers. Are you seeing that? It's a really hot thing defensively. We're going to all see it. If you're not seeing it yet, you're about to. What are you doing?
That and Tampa 2 are the two things when I stepped into that Division I threshold, were two things that I saw every week in their own flavor. Some was heavier than others that you had to have real answers for. Obviously, it poses a threat to me in the way I think, because I like to be an empty, and is actually one of our key talking points. But the first thing that we've done over the years is, it helps if you have a quarterback that can run, but in an empty mentality, what I like to do is I want to start widening edges or adding people to the box. So if I can put a hip tight in there, it doesn't matter who the body is. So one of the cheap things we've done, this is kind of maybe introductory, but this is something we did, is, okay, we want to be in an empty deal. We're going to be in our 2x2 set with hip tight end. And essentially my line of thinking was, we're either going to determine that they are going to bring this pressure, and now with that human, we're going to create either our full slide or our insert protection. We'll sneak them down to the A gap, and we want to go a more skill body versus skill player, whatever that pro is. And we're going to block you, and we're going to run our 2x2 concept on the back end, or 3x1. The other thing we would do is, if with some of this motion decoding, right, whether it was bringing the back in, bringing the back out, bringing that tight end in from outside, or vice versa, okay, a lot of this double mug stuff is going to drop out into the drop 8 stuff. It's going to scatter, or it's going to drop into a sim of, if we can uncover with some tool that, okay, this is less likely to be an all out, we would then now detach that tight end with a motion to then get right back into our empty presence. That's one thing I know that we did 2 years ago that was good. The other thing that, I'm not a huge screen guy, but one thing that we've done is we've tried to give the quarterback tools within that double mug 6-up deal, where, all right, you have a decision. You can slide, you got 5 humans, right? You can slide it away from your throwing side. You can slide it into your throwing side and maybe put it on a semi-roll that kind of looks like a pseudo sprint out or the run and shoot deal, to then, hey, we're going to rub it versus man, or we're going to run our little snag concept and pitch it out and just deter that motion. Giving the quarterback a couple protection tools and him understanding where the faults are. That was one of the ones. And then the other thing we did against teams like that was we would have like a true alert system where we could be in all the way 5 detached empty. We see this cover 0 pressure. We're going to disengage from this empty, bring in 2 humans, the running back and the tight end, stick them right in the A gaps. We'll fan out. We'll put skill on skill. And then if we're going to do that, our mentality is we're going to throw a hammer shot. We're going to max protect it, whether you slide it or insert it, whatever your deal is. We're going to come out of the picture we've called. We're going to bring everybody in, and now we're going at you. Those are a couple of the things that I've seen, but I'm really curious to see some of the other tools that are out there. Those were problem solvers that we had to kind of come up with almost in real time. That did have some validity, but I'd be curious to what else you're seeing.
No, those are really good. I kind of stay out of 3rd and long, because you get in 3rd and long with that stuff, it's a problem. Full slide obviously is an answer. What you talked about, especially in empty, I think sometimes you have to have that as an answer. You end up losing your back a lot, or your tight end. I think if you're going to do full slide, watching these different teams, if you're going to do full slide, or if you're going to do, we call it jam, but where you're going to stick the back or the tight end in A gap, and you're going to roll with it and stay with your base half man, half slide protection. I think you have to have a screen or a quarterback draw out of that look. I mean, it's just like, hey, we're passing the ball, the running back's up here. You have to have something that, even if you just try and pop it against one team that you can get on film and you're like, hey, this team sucks anyway, let's just run quarterback draw from this look and maybe hit our head on the goalpost. I think that sort of mixing, if you're going to start seeing it a lot, because the most helpless thing, I talked to a couple guys that were like, listen, when they start bringing that pressure, the Saban pressure, where they're reading the slide of your center and dropping one guy and bringing the other, that is a helpless feeling if you don't have an answer for it. So I think have a protection answer. There's some stuff in the 7-man protection world that I think some NFL and college teams are doing that's pretty good. I'm not as well versed on it. Gets pretty sophisticated, but even if you have, like you talked about, that's perfect, bringing in the 2 tight ends. But if you bring them in and you can slide either way and get the other guy out, I think that's something. One of the things, if you watch the Vikings, who probably do it more than anybody, if you watch what people did to them in the NFL when they're in the AA stuff, a really common thing, and I even saw a team hit this on 3rd and long. It's not empty, although I did see it from empty, but motioning the back fast out of the backfield, somebody's got to go with him. So when they're both mugged up in the A-gaps and all of a sudden you just say, you know what, we're going empty protection, and you get that guy going out of there full speed, sometimes you can just throw the ball to the back and you're rolling, or you have a crack screen built in or whatever. That's an NFL answer that people are doing to the Vikings, and even an empty sending the guy in motion and setting that up.
Yeah, the Vikings on Twitter yesterday, maybe it's Bobby Peters, but it was a mugged up and they fast motioned the tight end backside and they're getting a little X block to just classic smoke screen, right?
Exact same type of thing, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's really smart. And I like what you're saying too, because when you do, to me, what I want to do, like you just said, is I want to see, are you actually staying in the double mug? Are you zone? Are you man? Like, it's going to tell you something. And maybe the first time you maybe do it with a really basic outlet that gets you completion in a couple yards. But now, okay, this is telling us they're staying in the double mug. They're going to pop out of it. And then is it man or zone? Because I think that if you can catch those sim pressure teams in the mug to drop, it's not a traditional isolation option route that we talk about, but space reading on the stuff we like, you're just going to steal voided space because they're dropping out with like locked hip planes. They're not matching anybody.
I think it's the passing lab, so we won't get into this. I think run game, you have to be willing to pull a tackle in some way when you're getting that stuff to get everything blocked. And you're seeing that as people doing different tackle trap and dart type schemes to try and handle that. And of course, I mean, there's always GT, but man, this is so good. I'm going to go back and listen to it myself just to try and take better notes of the stuff that you got. But Caleb, you're the best. I hope people get something out of this. If not, we did. The two of us did. So it's okay. So no people can hear this is what it's like when we just talk. So be sure you listen to Caleb's pod. Best of luck to you this season. And I really appreciate you taking all this time. I know it's a busy time of year. This has been great. I've got so many notes. It's going to take me forever to organize this. So really good job.
You are the OG to me, man. A high school coach asked me, and they asked me, hey, I found some Josh Herring. I said, he is the OG to me. You've educated me in more ways than you know before we ever met. So that was a lot of fun, and I appreciate just the passion you have for the game.
Yeah, man. Hey, I appreciate it. Have a good one. You guys have a great season. Put a bunch of points on the board and kill it this year.
Amen. You too, brother.
Josh, as usual, any conversation with Caleb Corrill is just full of gems, and I know you have some takeaways from this episode.
Yeah, that was a long one, and there's so much good stuff. It's hard to narrow it down, but I think the quick game discussion has been something that's been really hot online, kind of what's happened with quick game, where is it going, that Caleb and I talked about. And I think just his points about it still being super efficient and something that is really, really useful in the college and high school and even NFL game. I think that's something anybody can take away from this episode for sure. I think the motion discussion, especially when Caleb started talking about motioning outside of kind of the box and, not messing with box counts and some of the other arguments that people have about why you shouldn't motion. I think being able to do that stuff is something that any offense can use. I thought that was awesome. And then again, it's hard to narrow it down, but I think this idea of a heat map within all your concepts to see like what zones and spaces of the field you are attacking, man, I think that's just such a great idea and something anybody should do with their offense with both run and pass game, and just make sure we're using all the space that we've got there on the field so we can attack defenses.
Coach, some great takeaways there. I'm excited about the series that we get it kicked off here again in the summer and look forward to our next episode.
Thanks, Keith.
That's going to do it for this Coaching Coordinator Network Best of 2025 episode of the Passing Lab. Conversations like this are why this episode earned its place in our year-end collection. It's not about chasing trends or collecting plays. It's about teaching the passing game with intention, giving quarterbacks real answers, and building systems that hold up against modern defenses. If this episode challenged the way you think about quick game, structure, or quarterback decision-making, we encourage you to take the next step with Modern Football Technology's quarterback development platform. It's built to help coaches evaluate quarterback play with clarity, track development over time, and teach decision-making more effectively. You can learn more at modernfootball.com or click the link in the show notes. This episode is also paired with the Passing Lab Companion, an AI learning tool built entirely from our Passing Lab conversations over the last 3 years. It allows you to revisit the ideas from this episode and all the episodes and apply them to your own offense and think through how these concepts fit your personnel structure and weekly planning. Thanks for listening and for being part of the Coach and Coordinator Network. We'll see you in the next conversation.
Hi, it's Sam Reinhart from the Florida Panthers. Watch as we take on the New York Rangers in the 2026 Discover NHL Winter Classic in Miami. The NHL Winter Classic is coming to the Sunshine State. Ring in the new year with me in Miami. Catch all the action on January 2nd at 8 p.m. Eastern on TNT and HBO Max. That's January 2nd at 8 p.m. on TNT and HBO Max. For tickets and more info, visit nhl.com/winterclassic.